Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really happy to be for us here at Bay Atlantic University and the Global Policy Institute. We're really pleased to host this book presentation. The book is obviously by my good friend, colleague, and really and distinguished professional, Kateryna Odarchenko, and we'll soon get into this. For those of you who don't know about us, those of you here in the audience and joining us virtually online, Bay Atlantic University is a relatively new, but not so new now, university that has been operating in the District of Columbia but for about 10 years. We were incorporated in 2014 and started operating in 2015. We are accredited by NETCHR, which is the New England Commission for Higher Education. Our major offerings are in the information technology disciplines, both undergraduate and graduate program. We have a very strong MBA program, and we also have social science disciplines such as political science and international relations, business administration. And by the way, as of this year, we have had the sort of beginning of a brand new master's program in science and public policy. So we cover the social sciences and we cover the information technology sciences. We have students who come from all over the world, more than 40 nationalities, I believe. I don't know exactly the count. So it's a very international, vibrant environment where, again, for those of you who are familiar with Washington, D.C., we're just steps away from the White House, so very centrally located. And the Global Policy Institute is affiliated with the university and operates as a think tank, nonpartisan, non-political, trying to provide actionable solutions to major policy issues, both domestic and international. Okay, I think I can stop the commercial now, but at least everybody knows where you are and who we are. Okay, since we're talking about media campaigns, which also involves media, for whatever it's worth, this building where we are used to be the world headquarters of United Press International. So I don't know what that means in terms of legacy, but very distinguished, very important major press agency of a longer, well, it's still there, but a giant a few years ago. So our point tonight is to talk to Kateryna about her book, and we'll try to make it short. But Kateryna has a pretty distinguished background, and I think at least I should mention a few things in terms of her professional accomplishments. So she's a political strategist, influencer, and author with extensive experience in government relations, election management, and crisis communication across the United States, Europe, and Eastern Europe. She's the founder of SICK Group USA. You see that, the banner, an international consulting company based in Washington, D.C., and she's the head of the Institute for Democracy and Development, PolitA. Over the past decade, Kateryna has advised and managed dozens of political and public campaigns worldwide, from Ukraine, her country of origin, and Israel to the United States, Latin America, and Central Asia. Kateryna has authored and co-authored numerous publications that have appeared in the Washington Post, ABC News, The Independent, SIPA, Kennan Institute, and Foreign Affairs. And there's more. Her firm, SICK Group USA, provides strategic consulting in election management, public affairs, lobbying, and crisis communication, serving clients across the political, corporate, and NGO sector. She's also the author of the book, and here we're coming to our point tonight, The Game of Elections, a professional manual on political strategy and campaign management, now adapted for an international audience and published in English and available on Amazon. Details to follow. Currently based in Washington, D.C., Kateryna focuses on building bridges between democratic institutions, think tanks, and international leaders, promoting ethical standards and transparency in political consulting. I guess, Katerina, now maybe I would ask some more specific question, but maybe you just want to highlight, what you wrote and why is this important?
Thank you, Paolo. We partners with Paolo not only this evening, but also we organize a lot of educational programs on political management, and every year we hold international campaign and government relations forum, which gather more than 16 countries for experience exchange in those sector. And it's very symbolic that last 3 years we did it in Washington DC before we was based in Brussels. So thank you so much, Paolo, and also our think tanks provide now a lot of analytics about Ukraine, of course, and we did also series of discussions on that. I will take 10 minutes of your time to explain what about my book, and it's generally handbook. So it's not like academical work, not philosophical thinking, not kind of work about society. I have for that separate dystopia books. But it's handbook for people who just start in their thinking about political career. I grew up in political family, so my father was businessman, and after that he was taken very active role in Ukrainian political forces. He was co-organizer of like Orange Revolution in our region. So after that, I decided to work in campaign management. And people started in Ukraine, on working with local politicians from Kyiv City Council and so on and so forth. After we started to work with Ukrainian Prime Minister and organize a lot of high-level campaigns in Ukraine. And next years, we did that in Kazakhstan. We did a lot of work in Kazakhstan, and then it is Russian-speaking people in Israel. And also we start to consult some people from Africa and Latin America. And what I saw the same mistakes everywhere. So I saw the mistakes about planning of campaign, about strategy, about building of team. Of course, all fights about budgets, because usually it's like 100 millions of budget. So, people fight for that. Much more in the United States, of course, it's 2 billions, but in Kazakhstan, it's still a lot. So that's why in this book, I have very strong structure of building your campaign. So first chapter of book, it's about, do you really want to be a politician? Because some people from business, for example, they have money, they have influence, and they want to help people, but they don't understand what to be politician. And it's very different from being businessman or from being influencer, and they must be psychologically, like ready for those work. And I saw a lot of people who go to this work, who even became member of parliaments in different countries, but after they or resign or have like big psychological problem because they wasn't ready to all this big brother eye to you all the time. So first question which I ask in my book, do you really want to be a politician, and is it your cup of tea to be a politician? And after that, if you really want, we explain what is political strategy, and also basic structure of political strategy by the book, because all politicians and mostly people who came not from local level but from business to campaign, they skip this level. They said, oh, okay, I'm successful businessman, I don't need any strategy, any people who will write with me strategy, because it's obvious, I own this nice farm, I'm a good manager of this farm, so I will be good manager of this country. Like, so it's the same in every country. Or I was in Israeli army, so that's why I will be good Israeli leader, But it's not enough. You must have strategy in writing, because in your campaign will be thousands of people who must do all the same. And even when we work with presidential campaign, for example, in Ukraine, I saw that media department can work on one strategy, And field department, all this canvassing, phone banking, can work directly with different strategy and different messages. And people on the ground, like people from local chapters and from district, they have their own strategies. And then you haven't one message. And really, the same problem, for example, had Hillary Clinton of campaign, who also have a lot of different messages, right? And a lot of different like special projects which wasn't working together. So that's why like thinking about your strategy and more deeper about your archetype and your hero journey as a basics of personal political image, it's very important to do it in writing. And it's very important to go with this strategy also to not only to your basic team, like your financial director of campaign and your media person of campaign, but also to modify the strategy for every level to your campaign, to the last person who do canvassing and who must bring the same message in different state for your campaign. It's very important, and it's also basic like mistake which people internationally did, especially in Africa, Kazakhstan, Latin America, because they just skip these elements. After we also explain what is polling and how we work with pollsters and sociologists, because also if you even have strategy and you have basic visual work on your campaign and maybe even good designer, mostly candidates just ask their wife about their image. That if wife like their image, it's okay because she know better. Or business partner, or also some candidates ask donor of their campaign, right? Who pay money, which maybe for some candidates more important than position of their wife. But it's not right. That's why we explain also differences between basic focus groups and basic also research which you need in deep. In some countries, even in like run for sitting mayor's office or something like that, people skip sociological research because they said, oh, it's very expensive. So it's very expensive. We know our voter, maybe we was in city council before, we know our district, or in like Eastern Europe, we have influence to maybe some municipal structure, so we don't need sociological research. It's also not right, because as a way you can put money not in right place. And we understand that presidential campaigns, it's huge money. So of course somebody want to, take contract from you, for example, for advertising. And if you put 10 millions to not right advertising and not right image, it will be fail of your campaign. And I know some people who directly skip strategy, skip sociological research, and then they work with their best friend who sell to them billboards and TV advertising, and this candidate have 0.5% on presidential elections. Also after research, we discuss, of course, issue of messaging, and I really like to go a little deeper with case study. In this book, we have more case study from United States and Latin America, also some from Canada, but we also have translation of this book. And on Ukrainian and Russian language, we have examples more from Kazakhstan, Bulgaria, Litva, Latvia, Moldova. So we also use on different languages, different examples to be closer to the audience, because it's in the United States we use also different tools, and for example in Europe it's prohibited to use some tools, right? Or it's not so big budgets. So after that we also put you as a reader to hero journey, because it's very important to give to reader algorithm why some candidates became successful and some not. If you read books of Mr. Vogler and also some other researchers, they said that all people in all civilization have the same thinking of archetypes and of what type of person can be typical hero. And if we and go to book of Joseph Campbell, a hero with 1,000 faces, who was main person who was working on Star Wars story, we used the same algorithm of writing bio for candidates and for searching right archetype for candidates. Because other way it can be third mistake when candidate did all strategy with smart guys and also all pooling, and then a political manager said that, look, you guy from Georgetown, but now you will be war hero because our voters like military guys. And it's a fail of campaign because this guy, he economist or he is a banker. He can't be a war hero, but here voters said that you must be a war hero, and it's also not right. And also every candidate must understand what is archetypes and what is this classical hero journey of their bio to write it in the right way. Otherwise, it will be, oh, it's good guy. He have good grades in university. Then he have rich parents and open, business with their parents in real estate. And now he go to public policy. Nobody vote for that, right? But if we take like the same guy who was, for example, not rich in childhood, and then he takes scholarship, and that he became do legal work because he saw some trial against a person on retirement, and he as a student was volunteer to work for this person on retirement who can lose her house. It will be much more interesting stories and like story which I explained to you firstly. So we also explain some resources which you need to go to write this right story. And of course, last two chapters, it's chapters about main tools. So what you must use in political advertising, what you must use in branding, what you must use in TV ads, and of course, what main type of field communication with voters, like canvassing, phone banking, because now also last mistake of all candidates, it's position that we don't need field work. We don't need to go to voters. We just need to go to fundraising parties and better in close private clubs. And other way, we will buy a lot of press and a lot of social media. So canvassing, phone banking, it's not needed. Town halls, it's not needed because now it's digital media era. In United States, it's very, very common, and even now, some candidates who plan to take in part in primary and in midterms, they really believe that they don't need to work in the field. Which of course wrong. You must use all tools, and as King Solomon said, nothing new on this earth. So it's mean for us that generally person and people the same. Okay, we now have OpenAI and we have like nice fonts, but generally, if we go to archetypes and to models of like society problems, it's the same like thousands years. And you must understand that also type of communications like personal communication, it's also the same. We also talk a little bit about working after elections. So, what is lobbying, government relations, and institutional advocacy from the perspective of elected officials. So, how you must recognize these people, how you must build dialogue with these people, and so on and so forth. So, generally, it's a handbook for everybody who starts campaigning, and also for everybody who's thinking to be politician on any level. And I'm very happy that it's helpful, and I'm very happy that it's practical, because a lot of discussions on political science conferences which we also hold and we also take in part, it's more academical, but all very, very practical conferences about IE tool on canvassing, and nothing in between. And we need, something practical but more complex. And our company at our institute try, together with such partners as Paolo, organize, that database and that algorithm of work. So thank you so much for your attention. And if you have questions, let's just discuss it. Yep.
Yeah, let me Let me just start, if I may. Thank you, Kateryna, first of all, for the very extensive and comprehensive description of the content of your book, which is kind of a how-to manual, right? You want to do this thing, check, check, check. You got to do this, you got to do that, etc. Forgive me if I go to something a little bit more, maybe I don't know if academic, but let us say that our assumption in Western democracies is that we have this wonderful environment of free expression, and where members of society come up with certain ideas and say, "Hey, I promote this policy and all that," and others say, "No, I promote this other policy," and you have something like a civilized, maybe I would even call it elegant debate between ideas. And then the different parties debate, of course, represented by different candidates, and the public, attentively listens, watches, whether it's on, whatever the medium is, and make up their own mind and decide what's best for the country. That's the idea, right? In practice, what we see is debates which are extremely biased, in which negative campaigning is the norm, depicting your adversary not just as your opponent, but as really a low lifer, criminal, an enemy, somebody that shouldn't even exist in this country because they're polluting the country. I don't, you understand, I'm exaggerating a little bit. So that's where we are. And you, I think you were saying before also in other conversations that how to be ethical, how to maintain a certain, not just professional, but moral standard. You, of course, it is your job if you're a political, if you work on a campaign, if you're a campaign strategist, to support your candidate. Obviously, right? You want your candidate to win. But how far do you go? That's the question on this. And of course, we could have countless of examples in the US, but also in other countries, of the demonization of your adversary, which really drawing on emotions of the people and creating fantasy portraits of your adversary that have very often very little to do with reality. But it's done all the time. I remember, again, Bill Clinton, just to remember one. This is just many things of the past. Who in his campaign for re-election managed very successfully to portray his opponent, which was then Senator Bob Dole, as a stooge of Newt Gingrich, who was the author of the revolution that brought the Republicans back in the majority in the House of Representatives, and he really did a pretty good job. And Bob Dole was a man of another era who said, "This is really unfair. That's not true," etc., etc. Why is he doing this, etc. And then after the elections, which of course Dole lost, and there was a meeting or something at the White House, and Dole, again, man of the old school, say, you got to tell the truth. But did he always tell the truth? That's a different story. And he talked to Clinton and said, why did you do this? And he said, in a campaign, you got to do what you got to do. And that was the end of that. He didn't say, "I'm sorry, I lied, but it was expedient for me to win. And so I did." He said, you do what you got to do. My job was to win and for you to lose. And therefore I did whatever I needed to do. And if that wasn't really truthful, well, so be it. And this is just not, I'm not saying, oh, it's because Bill Clinton is a bad person. No. And he wasn't certainly a special example of rough campaigning. He wasn't. But just as an example, there are many others on the other side. And so, you may recall in the 2016 elections when Mr. Trump, banking on an investigation that unfortunately was pending over Mrs. Clinton, opened and closed all his political rallies with, the chant, "Lock her up, lock her up." So because she's a criminal, she belongs to jail. And of course, this is a gigantic exaggeration on the extent of her possible, liability. So what's my point here? Sorry to be so long. Have we already passed beyond the point of no return in the craft of campaigns whereby essentially anything goes? Because again, your job is to win, whatever it costs. If it's lies, distortions, manipulations, it doesn't matter. What's your or can you still be a successful strategist and maintain ethical standards? Or is this just a question that shouldn't even be asked? I don't know.
No, it's good question. And generally, when we was creating Institute for Democracy and Development, we organize free lectures for guys who was young candidates, and to give them direct tools and sometimes very direct handbooks how to do canvassing, for example, because we understand that they never have enough money to work with political managers, or they haven't enough money to go to TV. And so, like, we try to form new elites in those countries, like Ukraine, Bulgaria, Moldova, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. In Uzbekistan, we wasn't successful. Yeah, but in those countries which have potential, but these people usually haven't enough tools and money to go higher. I think the issue which you point, issue of polarization, it's very different in United States and in Europe. So let's start from United States. In United States, candidates use more than $2 billion for election campaign. So generally, when I come to Capitol Hill, I saw that mostly congressmen work not on legislation and even not on next campaign, but they always work on fundraising. And it's the main issue to fundraise more money because election campaign became more and more expensive every year. And um, of course, when you buy so much press, it's much easier to move negative message than positive message. Why? Because it's our mind and our brain work in this way. So we have reptilian brain and like main brain. So reptilian brain, why all news negative? Because a reptilian brain said to us that you must search for dangerous situation and avoid them. So it's very, very basic reflex to searching for negative situation. And that's why you most likely will read negative news, like about, I don't know, about some killing, than news about new art object in MoMA, right? And everybody in communication know about that. And also, if you read some other positions, position of nudge, it's from behavior economy, but we use it in political management also when you have positive like pushing to something. But it's much harder. So on elections, you have like 3 months. So you usually take something dangerous and polarization. No, like Democrats said, Trump, quote, Trump authoritarian. So authoritarian is dangerous, right? And Republicans said that, oh, it's radical left. They will take all your property. Also, like, it's kind of like dangerous. But if we go to some like, I don't know, like trade policy or something like that, we have a lot of moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats, but nobody knows them because they're not like radical. Who know Don Bacon? Don Bacon, great Republican like politician with very like moderate position. Who know Marjorie Taylor Greene? A lot of people know her, right? Or Ocasio-Cortez, right? So it's some extremes, which very understandable for people, but it's not good campaigning, and it's also happened because elections so expensive, and mostly of this money go to press. In Eastern Europe and Central Asia, it's mostly connected with donor of campaign and candidate with their own quality. In a lot of situations, candidates haven't their own position because they just face. In Eastern Europe and Central Asia, a lot of situations when full political parties just support of one financial group or several financial groups. So, and it's sad because generally it's also it's happened all the time in history. But now, because of all this press and because of like Instagram thinking, you can create person who generally, will read just from a script, will be good actor, and in this situation, you must look in bio. So you must look in bio. Is this person ready for office? And one more time, people in some countries live pretty in modest way. So they like to vote for popular people, like for actors or like other popular people, maybe people from comedy club. And in this situation, they also sometimes work for bribes. Like pro-Russian political forces in Moldova give direct bribes to voters. It's around $20, and people vote for this money, not because it's just money, but because they feel attention to them. Money and food, it's kind of attention and charity. So it means that then you will sell, I don't know, like transit through country for $1 billion. It's too hard. So answer to your question, first problem, it's big budgets, much bigger every year. Second, it's more digitalizing and media in campaigns than in-person conversations. And third, it's also like tokenization of policy when position of donor much more important than position of candidate. And I also see that now political service became, business for ugly. So it's not like mission anymore in a lot of countries. So good businessmen and pretty like reasonable people said that, oh, it's like, it's too much for me. I will do my business and will do charity. So, but nobody ideal. Even in Bible, you see like that's all like characters in Bible is not ideal people. Like even Moses wasn't ideal person. He can't go to land of Israel because he also have some sin because he was too angry in some period of time, right? Noah wasn't ideal because he saved only himself but not other people. So what we can said about people in Washington D.C. Of course, we're not ideal, but we must work as a.
Let me ask something else, which I think it's topical now in this age of the, how can I say, uh, almost laser type of ability to target voters, right? There's a story which came out. This is nothing new now, about an outfit, I think it was called Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah.
That provided, it seems, or at least they would like us to believe, very critical support to the Trump campaign back in 2016. Again, I'm not an expert in this. You probably know a lot more, and maybe people here in the audience know more. But basically, by using special formulas and algorithms and targeting people in social media, in other words, understanding who is this person, what kind of car does he drive, where does he live, what jobs does he have, who is his wife, where do the kids go to school, what does he buy, where does he go to eat, where does he shop, etc. Ha. Maybe this is a persuadable. Not exactly. If he's already committed, okay, he's lost. Okay, we can't work with him. He's already on one side or on the other side. It's a waste of time. But there's a segment of the voters, they claim, that were persuadable, uncertain. And by relentlessly targeting those, they managed, they claim, I don't know if this is true or not, to persuade, especially in the swing states, a sufficient number of people. And you really talking about a few thousand. We're knocking million. Remember this, maybe we all forgot about this. When Donald Trump won the elections in 2016, the margin of votes that got him, above the magic 2017 votes, 217 votes, I think it is, in the Electoral College. So sorry, 70 in the Electoral College, was 77,000 votes. Okay? That's how he became president. I mean, and by the way, Biden in 2020, less, 45,000. So if you can move, what's 45,000 votes in a country of 330 million people? Not much. But if you have the ability to identify those undecided, persuadable in the swing states that give you, as in the case, say, for Biden in Georgia in the 2020 election, 11,000 votes. What's that? Nothing. It's not even a small town, or by the same margin in what it was, Arizona, I forgot. Anyway, and apparently successfully done by Trump in 2016. So my question is that the new modality to try to segment extremely accurately the voters and say, okay, those are lost because they're on the other side. Those we already have, we don't have to worry about that. And then there's this large or maybe not so large segment in the middle, and this is where we're going to fish. And we're going to do it with messaging of such precision, of such intensity, that we are very likely to get their support. And so this is obviously total manipulation. Do you see this as a professional as the way we're going? Because if that's the way we're going, it's not very pretty. Or maybe we're not. Just I would like to have your opinion on this.
Yeah, my husband do IT, and he always said that if you not pay for a product, you're a product. So it's a basic stuff for social media. So if you not pay for this service, you a product. So for example, you an object of political ads or business ads. No, when you just Google, I don't know, vacuum cleaners, and you have like advertising about vacuum cleaners, right? And generally what Cambridge Analytica did, it was new on that period. So they also like choose these swing voters for different archetype. And how they choose this voter for different archetypes, which we talked before, right? Because they also collaborate with different apps who was asking people like, oh, what's your personality? It's a lot of like such games and apps in social media. And people did that, but nobody reads this consent, like what is it about? So they generally share their data with first app. By the way, now Meta company not provide such narrow opportunity to do targeting, to do advertising for small groups as it was before. So it wasn't super new, because if we compare with campaigns like 20 years ago, you go to labor union with one leaflets, and even 50 years ago, and you go to church with other leaflets, and you go to, I don't know, university to third leaflets. So it's pretty the same message, but a little different accents, right? So they did the same, but with social media tools, which was much, much less expensive than going to leaflets to all these audiences. But it's one more time, King Solomon, nothing new. Now everybody use this type of micro targeting, and it's more important what your strategy is right for every audience. So what they did, like pretty smart, like they also use pages in social media, for example, with religious issues. So, and it was just photos that one candidate is like a heaven and other candidates is like a hell, So on archetype like thinking, it's working. Really, it's working. It's maybe not working for audience of this university, but for some audience, it's working. And if you see then also, influencer, our local expert, John Doe, said that, yeah, his position, it's not good for our church, right? And it's second like opinion. So to pursue voter, you must communicate 5 times or more with one message, and then you push this voter, who like matcha and yoga and have 150K salary and go to sports club. You understand that most likely that candidate will vote for candidate A, and you more target this person with different message. So classical advertising, expert point, Then maybe also PAC or Super PAC will work with them, on some issue. And it's also one more issue why it's polarized. Because as you know, Super PAC can spend against like some position like 5-8 million dollars. And if you put $8 million against some position on one district, it's made difference. So it's also a big question: is PACs and super PACs it's really freedom of speech, or it just became like elections more expensive? But of course, Paolo, it's a question also of responsibility of candidates. But usually, candidates who too ethical take in every country around 8 till 12% of every parliament in Kazakhstan, in Bulgaria, in Ukraine. So it's kind of smart party. And usually it's voters from big city who understand and who listen what they talking about, but not how they talking about. And if we go to rural area and we see focus groups, we more see that it's more important how person talking about. So if person aggressive, like for these voters, maybe they like because they will be aggressive for our values. But you must test all this stuff. And now much more interesting that you can test all this in real time. So candidate on TV show, you test in real time, then you text to your candidate that, oh, this message very good, you must be more aggressive, or you must kick somebody, or I don't know. And in real time, you see audience and how they, accept that. So it's like issue of new digitalization and new type of research. But one more time, in political campaigning also sometimes a lot of inner corruption. So sometimes candidate buy not tools which they really need. So, it all go as usual. That's why they need good strategy and good tactics and good plan with budgeting, because otherwise it will be a mess.
One more question, then I think we can open it to our audience as time is running. You talked a great deal, rightfully, about money, which has become more and more significant. How much money can you raise? And of course, before any election, if you here in America, but I suspect it's probably the same in other countries, you say, "Oh, what's in the coffers of the Republicans? How much money have they raised? Oh my God, they're ahead. There's 50 million here. Only oh boy, only 12 million there. Oh my God, they're really in bad shape. They're going to be outspent, 3 times, and that really is a bad omen for the campaign." And yet, and again, I don't know if these are outliers, but just a couple of examples, which I don't know if they're just exceptions to the rule. In other words, is the rule that the best funded candidate wins, or money is necessary but not the thing that decides the election? A couple of examples. Again, I'm going back to about the Trump campaign in 2016. He had essentially no money. He spent very little money. The Clinton campaign was a traditional campaign, right? With all gigantic staff and committees and subcommittees, and they were writing policy papers and this and that and the other. And then I have to hand it to him that time, the ingenuity. I don't know if people remember this. What was Trump doing? He was calling in on talk shows on television. Say, "Hey, this is Donald Trump," and nobody would say, "Okay, I'm sorry, sir, we're busy." No, nobody would hang up on him. And so he got, I don't know how many hundreds of hours of free, totally free advertising by doing this, which was something that nobody ever thought about, that broke all the rules and managed to give him, an edge, and also say, "Oh my God, this guy's different. Isn't that interesting? Oh, look what he does. Oh, that's of course. You know what? Because he's not one of them. He's different. Not as yeah. He's one. He's not just another politician. That shows he's got different ideas, etc." But on the other side, if you recall, in the Democratic primaries before the 2020 election, there was Michael Bloomberg. Okay, very, I mean, accomplished, really, really accomplished, self-made billionaire, having established an extremely solid business, which I'm sure most of you know, who had been, what, twice or three? Oh no, how many times was he mayor of New York? So very successful mayor, very effective. So there, and also great philanthropist for whatever it's worth. So self-made man, great business, very solid. He spent more than $500 million, and he got nothing, 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 not a beep. And of course, he had the good taste to say, okay, this is not working. I fold. And I think he endorsed Biden, I think, at that point. But one would have said he's got excellent credentials. He's demonstrably a great entrepreneur, very successful in a high tech, financial media business. He was the successful chief executive of a major U.S. city. He did well. He's got experience. He's a moderate. He was a Republican, then he became an independent, whatever. So he's not crazy, he's not a crazy, how can I say, extremist. He's solid. He knows how to do these things. He's reliable. He's sensible. Nothing. So again, I'm sure this probably, people have done the post-mortem on this and tried to understand what went wrong there. Was it him? Was it the message? But certainly, and by the way, he funded this with his own money. He didn't have to go fundraising. He's super rich. Okay, so for him, $500 million, which for us would be, something. For him, pocket change, and he got absolutely nowhere. So my question, maybe there is no real answer to the question, is money everything, or is money necessary but not always enough? Given your vast experience both in this country and in all the other countries where you provided advice, you buy votes with election. By the way, our ancestors, for the Romans who were running for public office during the Roman Republic, it was customary to have massive distribution of grains before the elections. I'm your consul. Vote for me. And by the way, here's for you guys. Here's for you. Here's for you. Remember me when you vote. So that was normal. Okay, so certain things haven't changed much. But anyway, so what's your take? I'm sorry, this is maybe complicated, but what's your take on this?
Yes, now also in a lot of countries, candidates just give food and money, unfortunately, and it's by how campaigns they work. And it's a good example where money makes result. So in some undeveloped democracies, usually it's two type of candidates. One type of candidate is person who believes that they can just buy voter, literally buy voter. Usually all pro-Russian political forces do this. So they give social contract, like agreements that candidates care about persons, and they give food, like presents to holidays, of course. And then they give some charity to local school, and then just money for vote. Or they said that, oh, it's money for your work in election day, and it's very common for Eastern Europe, Central Asia, for some Latin American countries, and of course in some African countries. So in this situation, money matters, but what is political capital? How to count it? It's why you need strategy, because you need to count every factor. For example, you can be very famous comedian. You lead best comedy club. Everybody know you. Everybody know you from positive sides because you give joy to these people. So you good guy, and you joke about current president. So this capital much bigger and much more important than capital of billionaire from privatization period, right? So that's why this candidate can spend less, because he can much more name recognition, right? Other situation, it can be person who want to be elected and he have 50,000 workers on his plant. So in this situation, it's his basic political capital, because only his employees can work with their families. And if he want to be elected to parliament on some district, it's usually, it can be enough, right? Or sometimes it's just condition when person who even haven't charisma or haven't money, but became famous leader because it was like revolution or it was some condition which bring this person to leadership position. And sometimes it's generally wasn't even leader of revolution. It was somebody who wasn't killed, but who became leader of movement. But usually money matters. And if you haven't money, you must have a lot of volunteers or a lot of people in your system. Because for money, you can buy media coverage. And with people, you can do this coverage with people. But no, not always people with money win. And also with people with money, everybody like in those business understands that they have money. And some people not very ethical, so they just sell to candidate some not working tools, but very expensive. Like one more time, to do billboards and political ads on TV without testing it on focus groups. It's just stupid. You can't do that for all country. But if you just sell these political ads, it's okay. That's why I like no, point one more time in my book that you can't use one tool and you must have different opinion in your team, because sometimes you just spend and spend and spend, or you take fake sociological research which shows that you grow in, but really it was, I don't know, like 400 respondents somewhere, so we'll see. And I hope that also every candidate must understand that not only his efforts and his money matter, but in all campaign, it's a lot of different factors which matter. I believe that God also, like, no, his position always important, because sometimes we see people who wasn't so successful, but they became like presidents or prime minister, and they have huge responsibility. So it's some like, reason for that. But from technical point of view, you must have your strategy, but you must ready to modify your tactics, because on election campaign every day can be different.
Okay. Well, maybe now it's time to see any questions from the audience. Abdul, do we have a microphone for the audience, or how do we do this? Or we take the other one? We can use this one? Yeah, and we can use the other. So, please, anybody? Yes, sir. And you can use that to answer. Thank you, Abdul.
Yes, thank you. Please represent yourself, because we have also brought audience on Zoom.
Sure. My name's Schirach. I work at Argus AI. I have two questions. The first one is, considering how much more polarized American society is becoming, of course, it makes a lot of sense to continue investing and identifying in swing voters and working out who they are, the persuadables, a smaller group as they may be. But my understanding that it seems that elections are now more about how to maximize turnout on your side and minimize or suppress turnout on the other. One of the reasons why Trump won in 2016 wasn't just because of Cambridge Analytica finding swing voters, but also they're making sure that certain people didn't show up to vote that day. So I'm curious if you think that American election campaigns are reflecting that more and more. That's certainly the case in highly polarized societies, Turkey, for example, and other ones too. Second question, which is almost the obligatory question in any panel or forum these days, is regarding the role of AI and how that's going to impact campaigns. From my perspective, I think that AI has already shown value in terms of creating oppositional research. It's a lot easier and faster and more in-depth in being able to dig out on opponents. I think in the research side, there's an opportunity there of using things like synthetic focus groups, analyzing sort of hundreds of thousands of social media posts to give an idea of whether a communication strategy is working or not. So I'd be very curious to hear what you think in terms of how AI can be factored into. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's start with turnout. From my perspective, it's very hard to increase turnout, and it's so some politician like did it successfully, like Obama. But usually, if we talk about developing democracy, it's more common to have strategy no show ups for some audience. For example, if you have like pretty conservative candidate who is agriculture like businessman, right? So most likely that young audience didn't vote for him and they will vote for somebody else. And for example, for local journalists. And it's very common to, have strategies in media or that some freak candidate said that, oh, like this election's not important because I'm candidate, like, I don't know, from Star Wars hero. So in this way, for some like audiences, elections can looks like not serious and they don't show up. Or some candidates said that if it's district or like local elections, oh, today it's good, like beach party for young people, only today is this like a DJ and they no a lot of young people go to this party and then on this district it's make some impact. So this strategy, like no show up strategy, very common. Like some strategies to increase radically turnout, I think it's more like can be protest voting, but just to increase turnout like of young people, it's big stereotype of a lot of candidates that I will increase turnout of young professionals. For me, usually young people not vote in any country. So no, I mean young, I mean from like 18 till 25. No, it also depends like what is young in your country. Yeah. So and about AI. I was on Georgetown Business Conference before, and Mr. Barata, who operate $1 billion, he also said very crucial and understandable point that now we can't live without AI. So artificial intelligence everywhere. So we must adopt it because it's just cheaper to use this tool. And for sure, for example, in the question of media monitoring and social media monitoring, it's really helpful because before on such monitorings, like on, I don't know, on effectiveness of press release in New York, for example, uh, I need to have like 2 employees for that, but now I need to click 2 buttons for that, you know. So and okay, I'm ready to pay reasonable price for this tool. For research of territory and main passport of region, it's also very useful because usually it's like 7-10 days, and now it can be 1 day for professional. But it's also have minuses because sometimes if you do like oppositional research, for example, artificial intelligence from like ChatGPT can't help to you. So you must pay for Nexus Lexis or something like more deeper. It also use artificial intelligence, but in a little other way. But to know how to work with Nexus Lexis, you must hire somebody who have experience with that, right? So and of course, we use artificial intelligence for rewriting. When we write message and when we write basic article interview, then of course we use AI to rewrite this material to all different like type of texts. And it's much more helpful. But anyway, I have discussion with some audience of international politicians this year in Palm Beach who said, "Oh, nobody will need political managers because all will do AI." I said, "Look, first of all, like AI don't understand the differences between different whiskey, right? And second, it's very personal. So usually, like campaign, it's very personal. So never any candidate, rich candidate, not rich candidate, will not work with political campaign just with ChatGPT. They need some people. They need some people to inspire. They need some people to organize. And usually, also, you can be best professional in your work. But if candidate just not like you as a person, it's not work. And it also was interesting that main business people, like this Blackstone investor, Mr. Barata, said the same. That now it's more important also to have like social skills to work in the team than to know everything because artificial intelligence know everything. So yeah, thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Prince. I really take your point, Paulo, about the persuadables, and it's also very interesting what persuades people these days. I have a friend in Florida who did not vote for Trump in 2016, did not vote for him in 2020, but he saw him debating Kamala and said, "Ooh, I like his comebacks." And that's how he decided who he wanted to vote for. So I think he needs help. Uh, my question for you, Catalina, though, is, and it seems like this should be a question in 2 years, but it's happening already, is on the Democratic side here. People are already jockeying. You can tell they're jockeying to see who's going to be the candidate. They're not seeing it so much on the Republican side because I think that their jockeying is to see who gets the dust on them, or if he runs for a third term. No one seems to know anymore. Constitution. Anyway, have you seen anyone on the Democratic side or even on the Republican side that may be following some of the elements of your book that you think might be a strong candidate? I'm not asking you to pick anyone, but that you see like, oh, they're following the formula. They may be strong.
Um, so first of all, you know, people who have long-term experience in political work, they also know rule of right moments. And if we talk about like politicians who have presidential ambitions and who see crisis in both parties with leadership, because it's too right and too left, right? They just waiting for right moment, and it's not there. And you saw that it's not there from Republican side when they choose speaker, right? So it wasn't like, you know, some famous leadership there, right? And it's a lot of good politicians from, no, you know, from the core states, but they wasn't even in the list. So it's some indicator. And also, it's bring us to second problem that if you there and if you're good in fundraising, you can be there in United States like 50, 60 years. And from this, it grow all this like idea of anti-establishment. It's everywhere. So it's everywhere. Like, I don't know, if you work in Moldova and you said that, oh, these people in Chisinau, in capital, they work against you. You must choose somebody not from establishment, you know, or like this capital take all your resources. It's very also dystopian stuff, right? But it's work in every country. And I think that like also this cycles of polarization, it's in every region different. Like also after Second World War in Europe, political parties who create after Second World War was very centric. Even like Christian Democrats or Social Democrats, which was very popular after Second World War, and who hold for decades majority in European Parliament, they was pretty like centric politicians before big polarization. Now, one more cycle of big polarization, you know, which much cheaper. But one more time, like Germans, like even Nazis, that he was using radio as new tool, right, for the disinformation propaganda. Now, people with not right values can use, I don't know, social media for that. But one more time, nothing new. It's just like quality of politician. And I think that now we also must educate a voter. Here in United States, people who even was good in school and go to some college understand some like, you know, algorithms of campaigning and how to choose your politician. But in Eastern Europe, a lot of people just not understand what's the function of parliament, what's the function of president. So they just vote for people whom they know, you know. So it's very deep philosophical question, but I saw now a lot of people who preparing for midterms. I didn't see big preparation for presidential campaign in both parties. So I didn't see that because I think the donors and main politicians who have this perspective, they just waiting for some moment. And usually this moment go after 2 years of presidential cycle. And midterms will show also some trends because I see here on focus groups, if you take focus groups from Georgia, they said that too polarized. I will vote, I choose my candidate, but it's too polarized, it's too much. Even people like in very, you know, stable states for both parties, like in Maryland, they said, oh, it's too polarized. So I think it's also a trend if we see it in focus groups and I hope that other candidates will raise in right moment. But one more time, we can do influence for that, and I didn't see anybody who start generally this campaigning. I didn't see such groups really. So because it's the same groups, like Elon Musk want to start like his movement, okay, and Bernie Sanders supports some people on midterms, but it's pretty the same like crowd, you know. Paolo, what's your position?
I don't know. You're
it's your professional in Europe.
Well, it's your show. But any more questions? We Yes. Then gentleman in the back, and then the other gentleman. So, okay, this is yours.
Thanks. My name is Roger, not affiliated with anybody. I'm just here as a curious person. My understanding is that there is a conventional bit of wisdom that you mustn't ever answer an accusation by your opponent, because that will take you off your own affirmative message. I happen to live in the state of Virginia. We're having the gubernatorial election right now, and there are some pretty preposterous ads on both sides. And it just strikes me as odd that a candidate wouldn't want to answer these accusations. I don't understand why a person wouldn't make an ad in which they say sincerely, my opponent accuses me of being against the police. That's preposterous. Of course I support the police. I want the police to be effective. I want crime to be reduced. I mean, why don't candidates feel that that's a sensible thing to do? Why don't you just rebut what your opponent says?
It's a good question. It depends on your strategy, because in basic strategy document, you usually have part of this document which called your strategy about opponents. So what we, no, for example, we understand that we have candidate for president, Joe, and candidate for president, Ivana. Ivana's issues its education, and Joe issues its border control. So, and we understand, so before Joe have focus groups, and he understands that his voter interested only in border control. So even if somebody will say that, oh, he doesn't care about education, okay, for his, he cannot react if it's in his strategy, because it's not in his agenda. But it also depends. Some strategies said that, you know, candidate, it's so small that he always must blame big candidate, and big candidate will react. And in this situation, the small candidate will have a lot of media time from big candidate because he will react, like, you know. That's why sometimes really small candidates come and organize demonstrations against like big candidate to take this reaction. So, but usually you understand what you will talking about and what your like opponent will talking about, and you plan these reactions in advance. But some candidates just very like, you know, active and self-starters, so they can overreact. And then your opponent said, oh, it's too nervous person, or like you can't vote for such like mean person. So it really depends on like this configuration of your campaign. But on presidential campaign, we analyze also how voters will understand all this like negative messaging, because usually you understand what's no some negative about you. I don't know, do you pay taxes all the time, or maybe some candidates divorce with somebody, so we understand that opponent will talk about, no, you know, this like family issues. If no, for voter family values it's important, but it's always very tailored, and some candidates they overreact, and some, like, you know, it depends on strategy. I didn't know like your situation, but for some candidates we don't recommend to react. I worked with candidate for president of Ukraine. She was a lady. She was lady from like oil business, oil and gas business, so pretty tough lady. And also on TV shows, it was a lot of people who was criticize her, I don't know, for something from her business. But for her, Walter was important her position on developing of rural area and small farming. So they really didn't care what was like 15 years ago in her business and corporate conflicts. And that's why she just not react to that. And she said, okay, you want to discuss this like 15 years ago? Like, let's not discuss, because today we discuss what? Rural area development. And she also like reframes this dialogue to rural area development, which important for her Walter, not just like as example. So come back to your basic message. And here's the same. You can have question about education, but then you said, oh, it's because of border control. So it's too much drugs here. That's why education also no, So you come back to your basic message. Thank you.
Sir?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, thanks so much for the invite to his lecture. I'm Drew. I work at a company called Aristotle International. We are applicable in data technology here in the States, and that's my specialty is the United States elections. But I wanted to expand upon your experience as an international election consultant, or campaign consultant, I mean. Do you see the rise of course, the international campaigns have some natural constraints to what they can and cannot campaign. Money is obviously a lot less. Many are publicly funded. Also, in international elections, there are usually hard windows of campaigning. You can't campaign outside 3 months before an election's called, that sort of thing. Traditionally, the role of elections were being done by party organizations. And my question is the rise of internet or of a professional consultant class. Are they challenging the roles and functions of party organizations in non-US elections?
It's a good question. Thank you. And thank you for attention to such conversation. Aristotle, we have 20 years history or 30 years?
40.
40 years history.
Yeah, we had staff on the ground during the
Yeah.
Orange Revolution,
Yeah.
and we worked with many elections overseas.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So in Eastern Europe, like 15 years ago, party organization, so like chambers of party, was more important than campaign managers. Why? Because generally they was led by businessmen who was paying for elections. So, and usually those regional businessmen didn't know anything about campaigning, and they was pretty rich. So they said that, oh, it's like a Harvard study. I know such a client who said, no, it's just a book from Harvard. It's not needed. I know that everybody like kids' holidays. So we will do a lot of kids' holidays with animators. And this will bring to me, and he write in some way, But before in Eastern Europe, these people was like very important. Now I think that main campaign manager who work in central office, it's more important, but it's still very separated, like media person and field person. And usually it's people from very different backgrounds, and they usually not friends and not really communicate. That's why I point like a lot of attention to strategy and to tactics, because they usually use very different tools. And main campaign manager have influence to that. For example, to bring them with right analytics or with right sociological research if candidate and donor of campaign approve that. So that's why my answer that in Eastern Europe and in partly European countries like Bulgaria, who in European Union, but still have political elites, from post-Soviet Union background. There are more important position of campaign manager to whom political leader or donor, so main like person who pay for that, trust. Is it always campaign manager, like who do it professionally? No. Sometimes it just like their financial director or somebody like that. But pro-European parties already all the time, pay to somebody who professional. Pro-Russian political parties, they have a guy who curator, and usually it's curator from this like Kremlin money, and they usually, give bribe in hands and so on. In Latin America, I saw the same when I work, but I did one campaign there, and I consult two people in Africa. But I see the same, that this relationship with main donor, it's very important. But even here, all these clients who work with us on primary level, they also didn't know anything about that. So we have one client who, from IT business. He have his parents immigrate from India. So he very educated like person, but he didn't know all this stuff, and for him it's very new. So of course, such people they always trust to campaign manager. And my idea on that, and what we do together with Paolo and in 16 other countries with International Government Affairs Professionals Association and Campaign Managers Association, we did a lot of free courses for local professionals to bring to them new tools. And look, in some countries, in Kazakhstan, people just like use focus groups as new tool. So in Kyrgyz Republic, the same. So they see like focus groups and as new tool. And when you talk about neuromarketing research of political ad, it's very new for those markets. So and in Kazakhstan, of course, party leaders more important, because even new political forces in Kazakhstan, it's kind of quasi independent. So of course, that main person who connect with central power, they more important than campaign managers. So campaign managers like fancy stuff, which also important, but not the same important as political leader who connect with presidential office. In Kyrgyz Republic, no. In Kyrgyz Republic, like in Ukraine, yeah. So I hope that I answer your question. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yes, Ben. Okay, then that will be
Okay.
probably our last question. Thank you.
It was wonderful, and it made me think about a lot of things. My name's Lisa. I'm not in the area of elections or campaigns. I just, like to absorb information and things that I see. And when I was hearing tonight, I was rather amused a few times when you brought up historical references, and I love it. I'm proud of just loving history. Anyway, that said, I was sitting here thinking about, other elections overseas and from more than a century ago. When I was thinking about the House of Guinness, I don't know if people here know that history. The family of Guinness, the brewery, Arthur Guinness, who in the 1860s or something was running for Parliament. Anglo-English, Anglo-Irish family, and there were campaigns, Indian campaigns back then. Literally, there were good campaigns, bad campaigns. I think I remember a family he first failed for many different reasons I wouldn't go into. But when he was successful, it wasn't because of the money and just because they had all the employees vote. It was because of all the humanitarian projects that they did. And so this little brief history, I'm thinking about what's going on today. And if you don't mind, commenting on what I just said with New York, with what's going on in the New York mayoral election. I was thinking of that also because you mentioned Bloomberg, so I'm just smiling all these things that are going in my head. And I'm sure that you're going to possibly bring up the potential of all these promises of humanitarian versus the money being spent. So I'm not going to go into it. I just would like to hear what your thoughts are on that.
No, if we discuss, yes, thank you. If we discuss Bloomberg, some candidates also, it's a big importance of charisma on elections. it's because nobody will listen you what you're talking about economy if you even great with economy, if you haven't like charisma and if you really not enjoy that. Some politicians haven't like any business background, but they good politician. Like, I don't know, Kat Kamak from Florida, right? She now head of Republican Women's Caucus in Congress. So she haven't big like business background, and but she like it, she passionate about that, and she bring a little viral like campaign, and she's successful. And Bloomberg, I think, with all his experience, and he also donate to like a lot of like campaign. Maybe people just feel that he wasn't like enough passion in his campaign, because you saw it's a lot of times that it's very rarely when you have very deep expertise candidate for president, not for parliament, for president, who will have expertise, charisma, and money, and on in one like bottle. It's very rarely. But one more time, I didn't follow all tools which he was using really. But tools of volunteers, it's also important, and Bloomberg haven't like a lot of volunteers. um, and you must work by yourself, like Raskin. So yeah, I give example of Kate Kamak, but Congressman Raskin, he really work with his voters, with his volunteers, and he really in the field. He really go to canvas together with his, like volunteers. So it's good example of person who also have his like agenda in economy and like human rights, but he also have some charisma and he like it, and he work in the field a lot. And when you work in the field a lot, people feel it, that you're not from office, that just from town hall. So thank you so much for this conversation. I hope you enjoy my accent. And thank you so much, Paolo. I hope that we educate some people and we bring our, some part for democracy development to Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and hope we will continue our educational work together. Thank you.
If I may, thank you for all of you to be here at such a late hour now. If I may just conclude with a funny memory that just came back to me, and I was talking to somebody who really, really, you would say, an old hand in Washington, who really knows because he's been around and he's seen it all, etc. And in I think was that in 2016, yes, the 2016 after Obama, right? And he said, no, it's time. Of course, this looks like the Republicans are going to win. And yeah, I tell you the ticket. Jeb Bush, president, John Kasich, vice president. Two moderate, pro-business, centrist Republicans. That's the ticket. And you know how that movie ended, right? And this is from somebody who really knew it. He got it because he actually was inside and his country's ready for a change, but not too much. So we will go from a moderate Democrat to moderate Republicans. Everybody's going to be happy. And Jeb Bush is going to be the next president. He got what, 5% in the primaries? 4%? Something like that. And John Kasich, I think, won his own state, Ohio. And that was all he did. By the way, I'm revealing my own biases. I could have bought that, but, it didn't really work that way. So which is to say that it is, predictions are, as that person say, predictions are really difficult, especially about the future. Yeah. Right. Anyway, thank you all. Thank you, Kateryna. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here. And maybe you want to say a thing or two about how to obtain the book, which is on Amazon.
You can buy this book on Amazon, so it's very easy. And, they have headquarters here nearby, so they can support their business also. Yeah, you can find it on Amazon. And if you...
It's very easy. I done it myself.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and if you want to search on different languages, it's form on our website, which SSC Group US, and we have also more than 200 lectures of different on C Group YouTube, and a lot of educational programs of Institute for Democracy and Development PolitA also, so it's free content for everybody, and we think that we must share those experience. Of course, we will be happy to work with you, and this March we will organize this International Government Relations and Campaign Management Forum, so it will be a lot of international professionals, and and of course we with Paolo will be there.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, with that, thank you, Kateryna. Thank you all for being here and here with Scandager.